Chapter 266. Number 6 Seed. Qi Fang's eyebrows relaxed, as if a huge stone had been lifted from her heart. In her simple opinion, since her son had defeated the number 5 seed, how could the number 6 seed be a problem? Oh, I prayed to the Bodhisattva today. It worked. She patted Lu Jisheng beside her with a smile. There was no competition during the day, so the group of relatives and friends turned into a tourist group in Gaofen. Superstition, Lu Jisheng muttered, but he could not hide the smile on his face. Chao Lele, Chiu Hailin, and the others had similar thoughts. They felt that the draw was not bad, and this opponent should not be as good as Chiu Lin. They were in a good mood, eagerly looking forward to the start of the competition. Only Jiang Fei felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat. He wanted to help Qing show off that Yan Zhike was his girlfriend. Why can't you be more honest? For the sake of friendship, I've suffered too much. Number 6 Seed, Meng Jifeng. Yan Zhike puffed up her cheeks. She felt that this opponent was neither good nor bad. She could only say that he was better than Han Jifei or Zhang Zhutong. Ko, your man is so lucky. He's the number 6 seed. Meng Jifeng must be weaker than Chiu Lin, right? Gu Shuang said excitedly, but her tone gradually became unsure, because Yan Zhike and Xing Jingjing's eyes seemed to be saying, "You look like a retard." Xing Jingjing answered concisely, "Not much weaker. His fighting style is more dangerous. Sister Jingjing, he has made a lot of progress in the past 6 months." Yan Zhike asked with concern. The reason why she asked Xing Jingjing was that Meng Jifeng was a rising star in the Gaofen police system. He was an 8th pin expert. Usually, except for the martial arts competition in the system, he rarely participated in various kinds of challenge tournaments. Fighting videos were quite difficult to find. Moreover, since this year's Spring Festival, he had not fought in public until this year's youth tournament. Xing Jingjing thought for a while and answered, "Yes, I heard that. His fighting style is more dangerous." She emphasized the word sinister again. After Meng Jifeng graduated from the martial arts school, he joined the army first. He made a great contribution and was rewarded with the Cold Wind Force from the incomplete chapter of the Plague sect. When fighting against him, the enemy would often become weaker and weaker. Furthermore, if they were not careful, even if they won, their bodies would be weakened afterwards, and they would catch a cold or have a fever. People gave them the nickname of influenza virus. Other than the Cold Wind Force, no one knew if there were any other martial arts techniques recorded in the Plague sect. Anyway, he had never used them in the challenge tournament. He had always been using the golden jade body and the modern Xing Yi in Jianghu. Thinking of this, Yan Zhike couldn't help but feel a little worried. She picked up her phone and sent what Xing Jingjing had told her to Lu Qing. 6th Seed. In the living room of the Lu family, Lu Debong cheered up. He picked up the phone next to him, dialed the number, and laughed loudly. "Oh, old Lu, are you watching TV? Are you watching? Have you watched Xing Province Satellite TV? It's broadcasting my grandson's competition. It's the youth tournament, a provincial tournament for young martial artists. He's already in the top 8, and he's up against some 6th seed." "Which grandson?" "Qing from the Jisheng family." "Old Jew, didn't I mention this to you before? Look at Xing Province Satellite TV. Qing is here." Old Mr. and Mrs. Lu informed their relatives and friends one by one. They were so excited that their faces were rosy. Wang Lily pulled Lu Jiqiang and whispered, "Why don't you tell old Xian and the others? This is also a good thing for our family. Wei Wei will have more confidence when he goes on a blind date in the future." "What's there to say? What if he loses?" Lu Jiqiang never had anything good to say. Lu Yanwei sat in the single-seater sofa nearby, feeling the liveliness in the living room. For a moment, he felt like he was dreaming. Isn't the life I've been dreaming of, Chang's? I can see hope and a better future, in the high school group chat. Du Liu, whose nickname was Little Xan, sent a link. Everyone, go and support Ching. He's up against the 6th seed in the top 8. What the hell? Tong Hua, his former deskmate, asked blankly. Before Du Liu could answer, Zhang Fei, who had been patient for a long time, said, Ching, that's Lu Qing. He's taking part in the provincial youth tournament. He's already in the top 8. Really? Really? Xiong Tao asked in surprise. The provincial young warrior champion competition. That sounds like a very high standard. When Lu Qing was in high school, he was good at studying, but he was not good at sports. It's true. I'm totally in awe of Qing. Qin Rui, who was with the Gushan martial arts school in another stand, echoed. With a recognized master like him as a witness, the students of Class 4 were skeptical for a moment. They clicked on the link and buffered the data. Lu Cheng's fan forum was as lively as it had been since this morning. The returnees, led by Nia Chichi, and all good names are taken by dogs, expressed that they were very happy to see the familiar moderator of the forum, Eternal Nightfall, and the lovely girl, Brahman. They would support Lu Qing and continue to cheer for him. Bull Demon King and Naive, who joined because of the conspiracy, were disdainful of the result of the draw. They thought it was inevitable that things would get out of hand. They hoped Lu Qing could defeat his opponent and enter the top 4 smoothly. Bad Girl and Scheming Bitch, as well as other conspiracy theorists, used the result of the draw to slap the faces of the conspirators, saying that there was no bullying and that it was all Lu Cheng's hype. They hoped that he would catch a cold and be seriously ill. Looking at the continuous chaos in the forum, the onlookers, Eternal Nightfall, Brahman, Unparalleled Dragon King, and Okamoto's fan, all sighed and wanted to return to the harmonious and stable situation in the past. As die-hard fans, Eternal Nightfall and Brahman both admitted that they were weak. Because it was the first match, Lu Qing and Yan Zhike didn't discuss for long before the singing and dancing ended. The ring was cleaned up and the referee walked up. He had to put down his phone, calm his mind and focus on improving his condition. The first match, Lu Qing vs Meng Jifeng. The referee glanced at the electronic clock and gestured to both sides. Lu Qing had the impulse to wave to Yan Zhike in the stands, but he restrained himself when he thought of her special reminder and felt the focus of the camera. He couldn't show his affection in front of the TV audience, or his father-in-law would kill Gao Fen tonight with a knife. Recalling Yan Zhike's kiss of encouragement in the evening, he took a deep breath and walked along the road of light to the stone steps under the illumination of the big lights. During this process, he was like a newly bought car. Every step he took was equivalent to a trip. His body and mind were gradually getting used to each other and his momentum was slowly rising. When he stepped on the ring, there was a series of explosive sounds in his body, either crisp or low. His bones and tendons were crying at the same time, rising steadily. Such power made the audience hold their breath and feel that Lu Qing, the number 18 player, seemed to be a little taller. Meng Jifeng was of medium height, with short hair and strong eyes. Wearing a dark blue martial arts suit, he looked a little charming. He stepped on the ring almost at the same time as Lu Qing. He stood straight and restrained his momentum, not tit for tat. The referee raised his right hand and exhaled, "Talk time starts now." Meng Jifeng looked at Lu Qing with a smile. "You must be under a lot of pressure, right?" "It's normal." Lu Qing answered without humility. "No, you're lying." Meng Jifeng's eyes suddenly became sharp, as if he was interrogating a criminal. "You're afraid that you'll be affected by my cold wind force and fall sick after the match. If you lose to your opponent in the semi-finals tomorrow, you won't be able to enter the finals. In that case, you won't be able to prove your strength. Everyone will think that you're a scheming villain who made it to the semi-finals by some unscrupulous trick." He wanted to plant the seed of indecisiveness in his opponent's heart, make him make a mistake in judgment, and make him hesitate. I have a clear conscience. What others say doesn't affect me at all. Lu Qing said frankly, if there is an opponent, I will challenge him face to face. If there is a smear, I will also challenge him face to face. I will fight back with victory again and again. This is my martial arts creed. It may not be mature, but at least it's my true thought. When I step on the ring, I will only think about the opponent in front of me. I will use all my strength to welcome him and defeat him. This is the greatest respect for him. As for the later matches and the final impact, it's not within my consideration. Because of the disturbance before the match, he had some feelings. With the help of this conversation, he sorted out his thoughts. In actual combat, the more you are afraid of something, the more likely it is to happen. He had to be firm in his thinking. Meng Jifeng narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, I hope you can remember what you said just now. He didn't say anything more. He didn't want to overdo it. After a while, the referee confirmed the time, raised his right hand again, and swung it down fiercely. Begin. Meng Jifeng's muscles and fascia suddenly swelled, stretching his martial arts suit. Visible to the naked eye, his blood vessels and tendons were protruding. They were dark blue like iron, making his skin as hard and cold as metal. Golden jade body was just a way to describe it. Meng Jifeng took a step forward. With his back as the axis, he twitched the fascias on the side and opened his right arm. Bam! His neck suddenly became thick, rubbing against the air and making an explosive sound. The dark blue blood vessels and fascia seemed to outline a horrifying pattern. Bam! With a series of crisp sounds, his right fist swung out as his body rushed forward at a high speed. Lu Cheng's heart was as cold as ice. As his thoughts flashed, he shifted his center of gravity, straightened his spine, and jumped back. After stepping into the dance stage, his condensation stance seemed to have improved because of the wonderful feeling. It didn't mean that he had a premonition or the absolute reaction to malice, but it helped his mind to be clearer, his vision to be more direct, and his judgment to be more accurate. Seeing his opponent retreating, Meng Jifeng stepped on the ground and followed up with the help of the accurate rebound force. However, just as his body was about to leap forward, Lu Qing suddenly stopped. He lowered his center of gravity and exerted strength in his footsteps. In a split second, he turned from retreating to advancing. He expanded his back muscles and punched out his right fist. A ferocious counterattack. He grasped the timing so well that Meng Jifeng's punch was very awkward because he had used up all his strength and hadn't used up all his strength yet. Hiss! Meng Jifeng took a breath, slightly retracted his strength, and then released it. This made his right fist strangely retracted, and his left arm became bigger. Chapter 267. Ever since he was a child, Lu Qing, who was considered healthy, had never experienced what it meant to have a splitting headache. But at this moment, he suddenly understood the meaning of these 4 words. In the arena, in the middle of a battle, without any warning, it was as if he suddenly had an acute illness. No, it was not an acute illness. He remembered the changes in his ears and instantly realized what was going on. It was the unique skill of the plague sect. It was the unique skill of the plague sect that gave people headaches when they couldn't hear it. And the opponent would definitely take advantage of your illness to kill you. At this moment, Meng Jifeng pursed his lips and his eyes flashed with a strong desire to fight. He turned his waist and kicked his right leg from the bottom to the top, like a scorpion swinging its tail. One of the most common mistakes made by fighters who were close to or had just entered the dance stage was to think that they could respond with force concentration at any time. It was true that they could reduce the effect of the headache by shrinking their qi in blood. But at such a distance, blindly using force concentration was equivalent to being a human sandbag. Even if the force of an ordinary attack would be reduced, and it would be difficult to directly break the attack and defense of force concentration, I can still kick your vital parts. Bam! His dark blue trousers tightened in an instant, and his whole right leg seemed to have become thicker. He whipped the air between Lu Cheng's legs. Horseback kick, scorpion swings its tail. Lu Cheng just woke up, and the scene of the life and death battle with the professional ninth pin of the dark sect flashed in his mind. His hair stood on end, and he seemed to have stepped back into the dangerous situation where he could lose his life in 3 to 5 moves. There was no fear, no panic, and no hesitation. His heart was as cold as ice, so he calmly made a decision. He moved his arm joints and stretched his fascia. In a very short distance, he flicked his 5 fingers and grabbed Meng Jifeng's back, tearing his dark blue martial arts suit. Clang! Meng Jifeng reacted immediately. His skin swelled like iron, and blocked the claw that could break a metal chain. Lu Cheng didn't expect to break the defense of the golden jade body at once. The force at his fingertips was smooth and transparent, and the claw became a press. He pressed down. Under the pressure, Meng Jifeng's center of gravity sank, and the power of his right leg almost dissipated halfway. It slowed down for a moment, then slowed down for a moment, then whistled again. With the help of the rebound from the downward press, Lu Cheng endured the headache, swayed his center of gravity, and forcibly turned his body sideways, narrowly avoiding the deadly horse kick. He also took advantage of the momentum to bounce back a few steps, widening the distance between them. He gathered his chi and blood, gathered his strength, and concentrated all the sensations of the headache into one. Beautiful. Attack as defense, advance as retreat. Caught off guard, Lu Cheng's response was too beautiful. In the TV broadcast room, when Lu Cheng flicked his 5 fingers, guest commentator Yu Hong praised, "You can watch the replay later." Meng Jifeng's abdomen swelled and his throat squirmed. Obviously, he used a sound skill that is hard to hear. If I'm not wrong, it should be the pain chime of the plague sect's chime of the bell. He has never used it before, so it's impossible to guard against it. In this situation, Lu Cheng, who has a headache, can still make such a response, which shows his actual combat ability. Ah! He suddenly paused, because Meng Jifeng didn't look disappointed after his kick missed. He turned around and faced Lu Cheng. When Lu Cheng was about to use the force concentration, his eyes turned dark again, his abdomen swelled, and his throat trembled. Together with the chime of the chime, he made an invisible sound. Buzz! The blood vessels on Lu Cheng's forehead throbbed, and his head hurt again. His spirit was also affected, and his attempt to use the force concentration was disrupted before it was completed. The sound skill of the plague sect not only attacked the body, but also the spirit. Meng Jifeng used the headache chime twice in a row. Even with the physique of the dance stage, his face turned pale. Taking advantage of the chaos in his opponent's body, he took a deep breath, bulged his temples, and flushed his skin. Boom! As if there was gunpowder exploding in his body, he swung his right arm backward and shot forward, driving his body to break the airflow and shortening the distance. Like a cannonball, he blasted toward Lu Cheng's chest and abdomen. This is the modern blast punch, mixed with the tremor punch. I came to this youth tournament with the intention of entering the top 4 and creating an upset. The backlash from the disruption of force concentration made it impossible for Lu Cheng to make similar attempts for a short period of time. He didn't have time to dodge or move away either. Facing the fierce fist, he took a short breath to stabilize his chi and blood. He visualized a scene of dark clouds and thunder. Bam! The muscles of his hand, wrist, forearm, and upper arm tightened. He swung his shoulder and punched with his right fist. Seabed quake. Tremor punch versus tremor punch. Bang! An explosion came from the smokeless arena, blowing wind and waves in all directions. Lu Cheng's qi and blood were tumbling, and his internal organs were stimulated. He felt so uncomfortable that his throat was dry and his mind was dizzy. Meng Jifeng also had a similar feeling, but since he practiced the gold and jade body, he was much more resistant than his opponent. His abdomen shrank, and his neck became thicker again. Blue and black veins bulged out, weaving into a strange pattern. Bam! He didn't retreat. His swollen left arm fiercely punched out, his fist glowing with a blue and black luster. Lu Qing was afraid of being affected by his opponent's unique skill of the plague sect, so he didn't dare to use the force concentration before he completely recovered. He only used the internal training method to control his internal organs, compress his muscles, and create a reverse shock to counteract the attack. In a hurry, he crossed his arms in front of him to block Meng Jifeng's fist. Whoosh! With a whistling sound, Lu Qing only felt that his opponent's fist was hot and cold, which made his body feel empty all of a sudden, as if he had been hit by a dark wind. He couldn't help but shiver, as if he was about to fall ill. Cold wind force. He thought of something and didn't hesitate anymore. He visualized the scene of a red sun falling to the ground and smashing into the frozen river. He didn't have time to prepare for the severe warning, but that wasn't his goal. According to the discussion before the competition, he used visualization to drive the collision between the frost and the flame to create the explosion of the supernatural ability and disperse the strange force invading his body. Ice and fire strangulation. Boom! Lu Cheng's face alternated between red and blue. The cold current and the hot wave mixed and surged out, completely eliminating the feeling of emptiness. However, Meng Jifeng couldn't just watch him recover, so he kept on attacking him without any interruption. As soon as the cold wind force came out, he got rid of the negative status of the continuous use of the headache buzzing. He planted his feet, lowered his waist, and used the force concentration. Boom! The force gushed out. Meng Jifeng's skin propped up, showing the blue and black color. He took a step forward with a slightly taller posture, bent his back, and flicked out his right arm. He made it connect the joints and expand gradually, as if it had turned into a long spear. Pulley. Lu Qing had just gotten rid of the influence of the cold wind force, and now he was facing this seemingly invincible attack. Under normal circumstances, a normal Dan stage fighter wouldn't have time to use the force concentration to resist. Failure was close at hand. However, Lu Qing took a breath and immediately restrained his qi, blood, force, and spirit. However, he didn't try to go to the extreme, nor did he try to condense it into a point. Instead, he hugged the half-formed Dan in a fast way. It contained a way to balance and a way to rotate. The half-formed human body Big Dan first solidified and then exploded, surging out a strong wave. This is also possible. The guest commentator Yu Hong whispered to himself. This seemed to be an attempt by a martial artist to imitate the force concentration, but in fact, it was different from them. Except for the fact that the power was much weaker, it was no different from the real force concentration. In a flash, Lu Qing completed the half-formed explosion of the Dan stage. His muscles swelled rapidly, and he leaned forward. He swung his shoulders and punched down. Bam! When the two fists collided, Meng Jifeng leaned back again. His arm muscles stretched so much that his sleeves were about to burst. He gave full play to the pulley force. Lu Cheng's half-formed explosion was obviously weaker than Meng Jifeng's full strength. After being hit by the pulley force, he couldn't stabilize his center of gravity and was thrown into the air. From the beginning, he had been passive all the time. Between life and death, every move was fatal. Yanjika unconsciously covered her mouth, afraid that she would call out Lu Cheng's name. Before the carp leaping over Dragon Gate, a martial artist who didn't have the supernatural ability to fly was forced to leave the ground. This meant that he would soon lose the match. Meng Jifeng had been hiding his strength in the previous matches, but now he was showing his true strength. Awesome! Zhang Zhutong smiled with a complicated tone. Meng Jifeng was much stronger than before. If Lu Qing hadn't encountered him, Zhang Zhutong would have been forced into a passive position. Lu Qing wasn't the only one who could surprise others. Qiu Lin could do it, and so could Meng Jifeng. After sending Lu Qing flying with one move, Meng Jifeng once again concentrated his qi in his dantian and made a double explosion. Crack! With a cracking sound, he pounced on Lu Qing like a cannonball. At this time, Lu Qing had just adjusted his center of gravity and was still 2 meters away from the ground. If he hadn't blocked the attack with his half-formed explosion, he wouldn't have been able to adjust his center of gravity. Seeing Meng Jifeng standing below and waiting for a chance to make a move, Lu Qing took a deep breath and adjusted his center of gravity so that his upper body leaned down. Then, he seized the short time to adjust his muscles and prepare. In his mind, he visualized the scene of the red sun falling into the frozen river. Come on! Accept the severe warning. Seeing Lu Qing was about to land on his head, Meng Jifeng suddenly smiled and stepped to the side of his opponent's feet. It's not like I haven't seen the fight between you and Qiu Lin. It's not like I don't know that you have a simplified physical invulnerability move. How can I fight you head-on when you have time to prepare? Meng Jifeng's joints were accumulating strength, and the fascia on his wrist and fingers were protruding. The eagle claw broke through the air and the spear finger blocked the rear. Lu Qing wasn't disappointed by his opponent's caution. Taking advantage of the time when his opponent moved, he made a force concentration in midair. His body suddenly curled up into a ball with the convergence of his qi, blood, force, and spirit. Then, he quickly stretched his body in the air and kicked out his right foot fiercely with the help of the explosive force of the Dan stage. Bam! His right foot kicked Meng Jifeng's eagle claw. Using the rebound, he straightened his body and kicked out his left foot toward his opponent's throat, as if he wanted to use it as a fulcrum to fly to a higher level. Chang'e flying to the moon. Meng Jifeng was shaken by Lu Cheng's Dan stage kick. He deeply felt that if it weren't for the fact that Lu Qing was in midair and couldn't fully exert his strength, he would have taken a few steps back and lost the opportunity to win. When Lu Qing landed on the ground, he would have made 2 force concentrations and let out 2 headache noises. It would be very difficult for him to defeat his opponent who could still make several consecutive bursts. He raised his left arm and blocked Lu Cheng's foot. Following that, he flipped and pushed, leveraging on Lu Cheng's strength to make his opponent fly higher. Lu Qing used this opportunity to swing his body and jump forward. He flipped over his opponent's head and dived into the distance like a big bird, looking for the support of the ground. But Meng Jifeng swung his center of gravity and took 3 steps back. Once again, he seized the position. He took a deep breath, condensed his qi and blood, and made a force concentration. Bam! His temples bulged, and his waist and back twitched, making a rocket-like rocket cannon. A real cannonball. While he was making a force concentration, Lu Qing also made a force concentration. He condensed his qi and blood and accelerated his fall as if he had used a 1,000-pound drop. Boom! At that point of explosion, Lu Qing suddenly tightened his martial arts suit and reached out his right hand to grab his opponent's fist. Bam! His blood vessels and tendons were protruding, trembling involuntarily under the impact of the explosion. But his 5 fingers firmly grasped his opponent's right fist. Buzz! While operating the internal training method to eliminate the vibration, Lu Qing heard his opponent's movements with the help of the great success of meditation. He was going to make a left punch, seabed collapse. Lu Cheng's 5 fingers changed from grasping to pressing. His body bounced up and avoided Meng Jifeng's consecutive attacks in time. Then, he seized the opportunity to lower his center of gravity and finally landed on the ground before his opponent kicked out his right leg. With his feet on the ground, Lu Qing took a deep breath and made a forced concentration again, swinging his left arm back. Double explosion. At such a close distance, Meng Jifeng had no other choice but to make a second double explosion. His temples bulged, and he made a modern blast punch to meet Lu Qing head-on. Bam! Both of them trembled at the same time. Meng Jifeng resisted with his golden jade body, while Lu Qing completed another forced concentration to recover completely. Triple explosion. He was going to suppress his opponent with continuous explosions. The unique skills of the plague sect were very powerful, but I won't give you a chance to use them. Bam! Unable to keep up with the rhythm, Meng Jifeng's arms trembled, his qi and blood rolled, and he lost his center of gravity. Lu Qing took the opportunity to catch up with him. He circled around his opponent and swung his arms. Dang! 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 1 shock. 2 shocks. 3 shocks. Lu Qing hit the metal with his fists and continuously made thunder zen, not giving Meng Jifeng a chance to recover and use the unique skills of the plague sect. 4 shocks. 5 shocks. 6 shocks. Lu Qing stretched out his body like the thunder god descending to earth. He punched his enemy's shoulder with his right fist from above. Dang! A crisp sound echoed. Meng Jifeng staggered, but he didn't suffer any external injuries. Instead, he fell to the ground in dizziness. Lu Qing was so excited that he wanted to give him 2 more thunder zen, but was stopped by the referee. Lu Qing wins. His voice reverberated far and wide, and the audience actually felt a sense of contentment. Chapter 268. Lu Qing wins. Seeing Meng Jifeng fall to the ground and hearing the referee's announcement, Yanjika forgot her modesty and scruples. She stood up with a whoosh, waving her hands and shouting something unconsciously with a flushed face. Before this, her heart was constantly changing with the development of the battle. She had accumulated too many worries and uneasiness. She always felt that her boyfriend was forced to walk on the edge of danger, walking on a tightrope, swaying, and could be defeated by the next move at any time. Now, with the dawn and the arrival of victory, the accumulated emotions surged like a volcanic eruption, as if experiencing the forced concentration. She was so excited that her body trembled slightly. Qing won. Qing won. Relaxation, ecstasy, pride, excitement, and other emotions were like a storm, roaring and circling in her heart for a long time without stopping. After the initial outburst, Yanjika calmed down a little and regained her rationality. Subconsciously, she turned her head and looked in the direction of Lu Cheng's parents, Lu Cheng's other relatives and friends. She was afraid that they would notice her loss of self-control and realize something. He won. Even if Qi Fang did not understand the martial arts competition, she could still feel the thrill just now. She could feel the silence and depression of Jiang Fei and the others. At this moment, her heart returned to its original place and she broke out with excitement that was rarely seen in the past. Not only her, but Lu Jisheng also tilted his gold-rimmed glasses and kept waving his fists with the people next to him. Chao Lei and Qi Yunfei also vented their emotions and shouted crazily, "He won! He won! Cheng, brother Lu Qing, won!" Seeing their reaction and the camera still focused on the arena, Yanjika secretly felt relieved, knowing that no one had noticed her excitement just now. At this moment, she found that Gu Shuang beside her was also waving her hands and excitedly joining the crowd, shouting, "Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng!" After a while, Gu Shuang noticed the gazes of her 2 best friends. She shrank her neck and stuck out her tongue, the battle was so thrilling just now. "I'm also very excited." Together with the atmosphere of the scene, she forgot to be a lady for a while. "Then let's continue." Yanjika held her best friend's hand proudly and waved it forward. Lu Qing wins. When the referee's voice entered his ears, Lu Qing stopped what he was doing and let out a long sigh of relief. He suddenly felt relaxed and happy. Just now, it really made him relive the thrill of taking a life in 3 to 5 moves. This was different from the battle against Qiu Lin. At that time, although Qiu Lin had displayed the realm of lotus steps and Buddha sound accompanying, which was beyond his expectations and made things difficult for him, the whole process was still under his control, just as Ku had said. Previously, when Meng Jifeng used the weird sound skill of the plague sect, he had been in a passive position. When he was thrown into the air by the force, every step he took was fraught with danger. He had been walking on the line of failure. If there was a slight flaw in his judgment and response, he would be defeated and unable to make it to the top 4. This was a test of one's actual combat, as well as a measure of one's realm. If he hadn't truly stepped into the Danqi level, his force concentration would flow naturally. However, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to complete it in time in midair. Therefore, he wouldn't be able to rely on it to do things that seemed to go against the human body and the laws of nature. After seeing Meng Jifeng struggling to stand up, Lu Qing relaxed his muscles and fascias and said with a smile, "You have the strength to make it to the top 4. I'm not being modest." Meng Jifeng gasped for breath, his eyes still showing dizziness. It took him a lot of effort to resist the urge to vomit. "Unfortunately, I met a freak like you." If Lu Cheng's physical strength had been a little weaker, he would have had the chance to squeeze out his remaining strength and use the headache sound again. Unfortunately, there was still no sign of fatigue on his face. Sigh, if only I had the strength of a 7th pin and could use the headache sound again when he was thrown into the air, the result would be different. Lu Qing didn't have the ability to read minds, so he couldn't hear the series of "what if" in Meng Jifeng's mind. He could only follow his tone and say, "Everyone has their own strengths. Although I'm freakishly strong and can explode several times in a row, haven't you also mastered the sound skill of the plague sect? If I had it, you wouldn't have a chance at all." Perhaps it was because of the residual excitement after the hard battle, he didn't turn around and leave the arena after a few words as usual. For a moment, he even showed signs of turning into a chatterbox. "You're right. You're right." Meng Jifeng shook his head and shook off the "what if." He rubbed his temples and said, "The cold wind force is not that simple. You should take a hot bath later and don't stay in the air conditioner at night. If you catch a cold tomorrow, don't blame me for not warning you. No wonder it's the influenza virus. The unique skill of the plague sect is really disgusting." Lu Qing cupped his hands and said, "Thank you." After that, the two turned around and left the arena in different directions. I won. In the living room of the Lu family, Lu Yanwei touched his chest and found that his heart was beating so fast that it was almost unbearable. Too exciting, this match is too exciting. Fortunately, Qing won. He took 2 deep breaths and suddenly remembered something. He turned his head and looked to the side. Even a young man like me is so excited. Grandpa and Grandma are so old. I hope they don't have a heart attack. In his worry, he saw his grandpa's ruddy face and heard him ask in confusion, "You won?" "I won." Lu Yanwei gave an affirmative answer. Good. Lu Debong and Lu Yanwei picked up the phone and called their family and friends. Qing enjoyed the praise and compliments for a while. Wang Lili glared at Lu Jiqiang and complained, "It's all your fault. Why can't Qing win? Quick, call old Axayan and the others and make them proud. It's already over. What's the point of calling? Let them watch the replay." Lu Jiqiang refused to admit his fault. In the high school group chat, another deskmate of Lu Qing, Wang Jia, sent an emoji of a Madam Chai smiled slightly, thinking that things are not so simple. "Oh my god, I feel like I'm in a fake high school with a fake deskmate." "Me too." Jiang Fei sent an emoji of cold sweat. I think I've been living in a fake world since I met Qing. Du Liu's former desk mate, Tong Hua, sent an emoji of snap of fingers. I remember. At the reunion before the new year, didn't Lu Qing say that he was successful in martial arts and was young Master Lu? He really is a young master. Oh, right, he also said that he quit drinking and smoking in order to practice martial arts. Because of this, he had a conflict with a rich man. I didn't believe it at first, but now it seems that it's true. Please don't say it. We didn't have a conflict. Tao Xiaofei sent an emoji of I'm now at Brother Lu's beck and call. I'm so proud. Many of the students who had been lurking in the water surfaced and excitedly discussed the battle just now. They didn't expect that a classmate would become a celebrity after only 1 year out of high school. He was so awesome. You scared me to death. After Wu Ting finished venting her passion, she grabbed Zhang Chufan's hand and said in fear. Zhang Chufan raised her head proudly. I wasn't scared. I always believed that Sir Lu could win. You're inexperienced and have no vision. I've been through a lot and experienced all kinds of challenges and scares, but I still support Sir Lu and believe that he can win. We're in different worlds. Wu Ting said with conviction. Zhang Chufan and Yao Ruiwei next to her were stunned. They seemed to think that it was true. Wu Ting glanced at her father Wu Qinggui and her uncle Wei Renjie, only to find that they were all silent and didn't know how to communicate with each other. She was shocked speechless. Walking down the stone steps, Lu Qing looked at the stands and pretended to wave to his parents. In fact, he was looking at Yan Zhike in front of him. Lu Qing, we meet again. Wu Wei stopped him. Congratulations. You really made it to the top 4 and achieved your goal. Thank you. Lu Qing retracted his gaze and responded politely. Wu Wei chuckled. So what's your new goal for tomorrow's game? Every question was a trap. I don't have a specific goal. I'll play every game well and verify what I've learned. I'll apply what I've thought and practiced in practice to see if it works or not. If it works, why it works, why it doesn't work. Lu Qing was still chatty like before. Nothing interesting. Wu Wei criticized in her mind. Then she asked again with a smile, everyone noticed that you were stiff twice in the game just now. There was also a painful expression on your face. Was it because of your opponent's unique skill of the plague sect? How did you feel at that time? Yes, it should be the sound skill of the plague sect that can't be heard by human ears. As for feeling it, it was like my head was going to split open. Lu Qing recalled the battle. Wu Wei asked about some details of the game. Then she raised her eyebrows and smiled. Lu Qing, have you heard the news? The news about your conversation with Qiu Lin? Yes. Lu Qing knew that the reporters wouldn't let it go. What do you think? I think a lot of people are saying that it's unfair. Wu Wei asked skillfully. Lu Qing didn't know whether she meant that the organizing committee was unfair to him or that Lu Qing didn't draw Zhang Zhutong and Han Jifei, which was unfair to the other contestants. Lu Qing thought for a while and said, I believe that the organizing committee is fair. I always do. He didn't say more because he felt that the more he said, the easier it would be for him to be criticized. Is this the trouble of becoming famous? Yenjika sat down again and listened to her boyfriend's interview. She seemed to understand his feelings. She frowned slightly and took out her phone to check Lu Cheng's fan forum, only to find that it was still noisy. On one side, Eternal Nightfall, Brahman, and Unparalleled Dragon King were venting their excitement. Some were acting cute, some were infatuated, some were analyzing, and some were congratulating Lu Qing for making it to the top 4. On the other side, many people were still cursing, and their attitudes were even more vicious. See? He made it to the top 4 with a trick. If he hadn't drawn Meng Jifeng, he would never have made it to the top 4. He just said that he always believed in the organizing committee. Hypocrite, a hypocrite worse than a villain. F***ck, nothing good ever happens to good people. Bad people always get what they want. Seeing that they were cursing fiercely, eternal nightfall, couldn't hold back her anger anymore. She jumped out and said, "Don't you have eyes? Don't you have ears? Didn't you hear the guest grandpa say that Meng Jifeng has mastered the sound skill of the plague sect and has the strength to make it to the top 4? She tried to make herself look fierce, but it was true that she was not good at insulting people. She looked weak. So what? It's just a mouth. Yenjika looked at them cursing and Brahman and others joining in the fight. Suddenly, she felt a little emotional. She pursed her lips and gritted her teeth. These shouldn't be borne by Qing. After Zhang Zhutong defeated a non-seeded fighter, Han Jifei defeated the 3rd-seeded fighter, and Lu Xuanjun defeated the 8th-seeded fighter, the audience began to leave the stadium. Yenjika followed Gu Shuang and Xing Jingjing to a nearby parking lot with a heavy heart. All of a sudden, she raised her head and said with determination, "I'm not going anywhere. Shuang, take me to Cheng's room." Ah. Gu Shuang was confused and then blurted out, "Isn't he in the semi-finals tomorrow? What are you thinking about?" Yenjika was annoyed and amused at the same time. Then she bit her lower lip and said, "I have something to tell him." "Can't you QQ or call him?" Gu Shuang frowned. Yenjika shook her head and said, "I want to tell him face to face." "Okay." Gu Shuang knew that Ku was stubborn and wouldn't change her mind easily. She had to give in. In the room, Lu Qing had just arrived and turned off the air conditioner. He was about to brush his teeth and go to bed when he saw a message from his girlfriend. "I'm outside the door." "Ah. Outside the door." Lu Qing was confused and at a loss. "Isn't Ku sleeping with Gu Shuang? Why is she outside my door? Could it be? He couldn't help but think of something else. His throat was dry and his mind was full of strange thoughts. Tomorrow is the semi-finals and the final, forget it. Go to hell with the competition. It's not like there's only one challenge tournament. He ran to the door and suddenly felt something was wrong. Ku's message was not as lively as usual. Something else. He opened the door in confusion and saw his girlfriend in a chiffon blouse. She looked fresh and graceful in the dim light. He moved aside and let her in. Lu Qing closed the door and was about to say something when Yenjika looked down at her toes and said, "Qing, do you know about the scandal? Did you see the quarrel in the forum?" "Yes." "What's wrong?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. Yenjika took a breath and bit her pink lips. I asked someone to create hype. I'm afraid there will be suppression." After saying this, she exhaled as if she had been freed from a difficult situation. "Since it has come to this, I don't want to hide it from Qing." "Ah." Lu Qing was stunned. He suddenly remembered his conversation with Meng Jifeng. He said he had a clear conscience about the scandal. Was it because the committee didn't pick Zhang Zhutong or Han Jifei? It was not fair to the other contestants. He knew Ku was doing this for his own good. He was touched but also had other inexplicable emotions. Yenjika glanced at him timidly. "Cheng, are you angry?" Hearing his girlfriend's question and seeing her quail-like appearance, Lu Qing said, No. Casanova's teaching flashed in his mind. If you want to communicate, you need to communicate with a good attitude. When communicating, you need to praise the girl first. Lu Qing considered his words and continued, "I'm actually quite touched. You've done so many things for me. I can feel your heart, but what?" Yenjika heaved a sigh of relief and asked. "However, in the future, if there are similar and bigger matters, can you discuss with me first and ask for my opinion? Lu Qing hurriedly explained, I'm not saying you didn't do a good job. I just don't like the feeling of being kept in the dark. In this way, he could persuade her in time. Yenjika said, I didn't want to hide it from you. That's why I came here. Maybe I'm used to making my own decisions. I haven't developed the habit of discussing with you. I'll try my best in the future. After this incident, she suddenly felt that when two people were together, they had to be honest with each other. They had to communicate and discuss with each other. They couldn't be too self-centered. This was indeed uncomfortable, but it was a price they had to pay. I will too. Lu Qing didn't dwell on the previous incident. Since it happened, hearing his words, Yenjika suddenly snorted. It's good that you know. If something like Wang Su happens again in the future, will you still do it without asking for my opinion? No, I won't. Lu Qing hurriedly promised. How long ago was this? Why did she mention it? Who was the one who wanted to apologize just now? Chapter 269. Looking at Lu Cheng's dumbfounded expression, Yenjika chuckled, turned her head to the side, and explained with a blush on her face, at that time, maybe I just had a vague feeling for you, and I didn't know it until later, so the reaction wasn't too strong. After we were together, every time I thought of it, I was scared. I even had nightmares because of it. If you had made a mistake at that time, while speaking, her eyes were slightly red. Lu Qing felt sorry for her. Lu Cheng's heart ached for her. He reached out and pulled the girl into his arms. Then he sat sideways on the bed and let her lean on him. I was too rash and immature at that time. I won't do it again. Dating, marriage, companionship, and growing old together were not only emotional matters, but also practical life. It was a change from a state where one did not have to worry about food and family to two people who shared a common destiny. Every idea and every decision one made did not only concern oneself, but also had to consider the other half. That was responsibility. It would sacrifice a lot of freedom, but there was nothing in the world that didn't come with a price. Yenjika leaned on his chest and felt his tenderness as he stroked her hair. Her tone became light as she said, I believe you. I'm not angry. I just want to tell you my worries and fears. Sometimes, if you don't say it out loud, how can you expect the other party to truly understand? I'm not stupid. She didn't raise her head, paused, and continued, I know that some things have to be done. My grandpa always said that no matter a man or a woman, there are always some responsibilities that must be borne. There are always times when you have to risk your life without hesitation. But you can't be impulsive. You have to seriously weigh the pros and cons, and then make a decision. It's not a big deal to do something impulsive. Even the hooligans on the street can do it. A real hero should still do it after careful consideration. In the future, when you encounter a situation like this and have to do something, I won't stop you. I just hope that you can tell me, let me bear it with you. Grandpa, you're so right. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. Ku was indeed better at expressing and communicating than he was. If it were him, he probably wouldn't be able to make it so organized and highlight the key points. I'll think twice in the future. I'll discuss it with you. At this point, he laughed and said, I really want to see Grandpa. Who's your grandpa? Yenjike complained and asked curiously, why do you want to see him? I want to see what kind of senior can teach such a good girl and make you have such good values. Lu Qing snickered. Bah! You mushy guy. You just want to compliment me. Yenjike couldn't help but laugh. Her mood had completely calmed down. She joked, Humph, let me punch your chest with my little fist. Your little fists can break stones. Lu Qing echoed with a smile. They laughed for a while. Then Yenjika looked up, pursed her lips, and asked worriedly, Ching, you really don't mind those haters, those dirty words? You didn't do it. It's all my fault. I'd be lying to you if I said I don't mind. But it's okay. I just felt wronged before. Now that I understand, it's okay. What you did is what I did. I can only use victory after victory to change other people's prejudice. If there are still people who slander me after I show my unquestionable strength, then I don't care. I can't expect everyone to like me and not hate me. There will always be a small group of people who are twisted for various reasons. Yenjika bit her teeth and asked worriedly, will you be under a lot of pressure like this? Using victory after victory to change other people's prejudice. Is he thinking about breaking through 2 levels in a row tomorrow? That will be a lot of psychological pressure. Lu Cheng was stunned at first. Then he laughed and said, Yenjika, are you infected by me? Have you become stupid? When I said victory after victory, I didn't just mean this youth tournament. In a martial arts competition, when your strength is about the same or a little weaker than your opponent, there is no such thing as 100% chance of winning. The Dragon King has lost, the Warrior Sage has lost, and now all famous masters have lost. What I mean is, as long as I keep pushing forward, even if I lose tomorrow, I will win more and more in the future. As for the former, I believe I can do it. After saying that, he took a deep breath of the girl's fragrance. Humph, you also know that your stupidity is contagious. Yenjika smiled and said. She was relieved and broke free from Lu Chang's arms. She sat up straight and said, I should go downstairs. Sister Jingjing and the others are waiting for me in the car. Looking at a beauty under the light, Lu Cheng was more and more charming. Thinking of his previous expectation, he swallowed and suggested, Yenjika, why don't you let Sister Jingjing and the others go first and you sleep here tonight? Yenjika was stunned, and her cheeks reddened at a speed visible to the naked eye. She stammered, You have tomorrow. Harmonious beast passing by, the phone call was from Gu Shuang. Yenjika calmed down before answering, What's wrong? You took so long to answer. Gu Shuang laughed, which made Yenjika blush. She didn't dare to answer. I was afraid that we would wait in vain, so I wanted to call first to confirm. We can't sleep in the car, right? I didn't disturb you, did I? What are you thinking about? I'll come down right away. Yenjika said angrily. Lu Qing covered his face helplessly. Miss Gu Shuang, why didn't you call me a minute later? Yenjika glanced at him with a little bit of brilliance hidden in her eyes. She hummed, I'll go first. You have a competition tomorrow. While speaking, she looked to the side shyly and jumped off the bed. She tidied her clothes and flashed to the door. Lu Qing sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He stood up and bent down to send the girl to the door. Yenjika accidentally saw him and said shyly, Hello, big pervert. Bye, big pervert. Good night. Lu Qing stepped forward, hugged her, and kissed her gently on the forehead. Yenjika opened her eyes and turned to look to the side, Good night. Then she turned around and ran to the elevator, as if she didn't want to leave if she didn't. She was so emotional today that she almost lost control. After the competition, Zhang Zhutong got into the car and sat in the back seat. He ignored his female companion and closed his eyes, thinking about the 2 competitions between Lu Qing and Meng Jifeng, and Han Jifei and Qiu Shan. The car sped across the street. Instead of going to his villa, they came to a 29-story building. 4 big words were embellished with lights at the top. Haiyuan Building. Zhang Zhutong took a deep breath and led his female companion into the building through the side door. They took the elevator to the 11th floor and saw the sign at the door, Shenhua Club. You're here. A man in a white coat greeted them with a smile. It was almost 10 o'clock. The first floor was empty and quiet. There were only a few of them here. I need to recover from the 2 competitions tomorrow. Zhang Zhutong smiled. The man in the white coat laughed. You've tried the effect of the ultra-low temperature cold therapy system. With acupuncture and pills, you'll be able to get rid of most of your fatigue and recover to your peak condition. As they talked, they passed through several decorations and entered a sci-fi room. In front of them was a room that looked like a space capsule. The ultra-low temperature cold therapy system used liquid nitrogen to create an environment between -110 and 140 degrees Celsius. When the human body was strongly stimulated by cold for a short period of time, its stress protection mechanism would be activated. It would control the secretion of relevant hormones and instantly increase the strength of blood circulation to protect the organs and tissues and maintain the body temperature. This would remove impurities and reduce the production of metabolites. In other words, it would relieve muscle pain and accelerate the recovery of fatigue. After a short period of cold stimulation, the body would return to normal temperature. The muscles would be more relaxed, and the blood circulation would replenish the body's energy, making the body recover quickly. Zhang Zhutong took off his clothes and put on the device to prevent the low temperature from damaging his respiratory system. Then he opened the door and walked in. Chapter 270. It was a hot summer at the beginning of August. The air was humid and hot, as if he was in a sauna. Lu Qing sat on the edge of the bed. His mind was wandering and his passion was still there. He wanted to take a cold shower to calm himself down, but considering the effect of the cold wind, he had to give up. But in order to be in the best condition for tomorrow's game, he couldn't do anything else. He laughed and shook his head. He picked up his phone and sent a message to Yan Zhika with a pitiful expression. I don't dare to turn on the air conditioner or take a cold shower. I can only calm down and cool down naturally. When the elevator went down, Yan Zhika seemed to be able to feel the heat of his touch on her waist and abdomen. She spat and pursed her lips. She took out a mirror from her bag and looked at her face. Her cheeks were red, her lips were pink and moist, and her eyes were full of shyness. She knew he was up to no good, perverted Qing. She cursed silently. After getting out of the elevator, she stayed in the lobby. She didn't dare to go out and meet Gu Shuang and Xing Jingjing directly. After a few minutes, she took out the mirror and checked her face again. After confirming that her face was normal, she put the things into the bag with cute eyes and walked out of the hotel to Gu Shuang's car. Pulling open the door of the passenger seat, Yan Zhika saw her best friend looking at her from head to toe before she even sat down. Gu Shuang snickered. I feel that the phone call just now ruined your good time. What good time? Yan Zhika answered angrily. It was obviously a bad thing. I'm such a rational girl. How could I fool around with Qing when I know he has an important game tomorrow? I must be possessed. Yes, I must be infected by him. I don't really believe it. Gu Shuang laughed. With such a beauty beside him, and the excitement after winning a key game, I can't help it either. I don't believe a normal man like Qing can hold back. What can you hold back? Yan Zhika didn't dare to continue the topic. She pursed her lips and looked forward. Hearing this, Gu Shuang stopped turning the car key and laughed. I was just talking to Sister Jingjing about this. What? Yan Zhika looked at her blankly and then at Xing Jingjing, who was sitting in the back seat with a cold and innocent face. I was talking about your good figure. Every time I see it, I'm jealous. I can't help but want it. You want to occupy it. Gu Shuang's laughter echoed in the car. Look, my thighs are thicker than yours, my waist is fatter than yours, and my breasts aren't as perky as yours. I really want to cry. At least you have big breasts, Xing Jingjing said faintly. That's true. Now that you mention it, my confidence is back. Gu Shuang raised her head and started the car. Female hooligan, it's time for you to lose weight. Yenjika laughed and scolded her. She took out her phone and saw Lu Cheng's message. A calm heart will naturally cool down. The girl blushed and replied in annoyance. You scoundrel. Perverted orange. Lu Cheng pretended to turn pale with fright and said, I'm innocent. I mean, it's hot. There's no air conditioning. The room is so hot. Humph, isn't someone known as a walking air conditioner? Why would he be afraid of heat? Yenjika said with a, there is only one truth, expression. Bad guy, he must be talking about that matter. I'm worried that this will also cause the outbreak of the cold wind force. Lu Cheng tried to explain. Oh, Yenjika said angrily, then you can't turn on the air conditioner or use the power of frost to lower the temperature. And you want me to sleep here? Do you want me to die from the heat? Do you want me to stay with you and be cool with a calm heart? I was wrong. Lu Cheng was confused at first, but then he couldn't help laughing. Damn it, I was tricked by Ku again. Yenjika raised the corner of her mouth and showed her dimples. She felt fluffy and light. Tsk tisk. Gu Shuang, who was driving, glanced at her. Lu Cheng finally calmed down after laughing and chatting for a while. He walked to the window and opened it halfway. Breathing in the dry and hot night air, he dialed his master's number. Hey, brat, you still remember that you have a master? Geezer sure couldn't help but mock him. No such thing. I just don't want to trouble you with small things. Lu Cheng laughed and said, Master, I'm in the dance stage now. I'm participating in the Youth Fighter Championship of our province and made it to the semi-finals. Tomorrow is the semi-finals. He showed off his achievements during this time, hoping to see his master's surprised, pleasantly surprised reaction. Not bad. Your progress is not bad. It's a little faster than what I expected. Geezer sure had already digested this matter. He answered calmly and emphasized the word, a little. As for the Youth Fighter Championship, do you think I care about such a low-level thing? Of course, it's not bad to make it to the semi-finals. You didn't embarrass me. Speaking of this, he laughed and said, did you mix the knowledge of cultivation into your dance stage this time? Yes, I did. I was just about to ask you, Lu Cheng answered frankly. Geezer sure laughed and said, let me guess. Did you get the inspiration from Longhu Immortal's Tai Chi formation of Tai Chi with ice and fire? Did you mix this into your force concentration? Ah. Master, how did you know? Lu Cheng was surprised. It was as if he had seen it with his own eyes. No, even if he had seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have discovered such an essential thing. Geezer sure laughed comfortably. I can guess it with my toes. Without other references, this is the only thing you can do. What's your plan for your next training? What's your plan? He didn't dare to say too much for fear of making a fool of himself. I'm thinking of first adapting to the state of dance stage. Then I'll break down the basics and re-examine and master them again. When school reopens, I'll ask for your protection so that I can improve my ice and fire supernatural abilities. Lu Cheng explained his plan. Not bad. You're not impatient and don't get carried away. You can keep your composure. Geezer sure praised. Many people focus on better training methods and higher martial arts after they enter the dance stage. They completely forget about strengthening the foundation and understanding the process of the body breaking through the limits step by step. This is very useful for the internal root pulp training in the future. Don't worry. When school starts, I'll teach you the corresponding things for the dance stage. Yes, Master. Lu Cheng answered happily. After hanging up the phone, he looked at the time and lay down in bed. He said goodnight to Yenjika, concealed his spirit in qi, and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Lu Qing woke up on time. He felt refreshed and didn't catch a cold. During the morning exercise, he continued to integrate the martial arts he had learned into the cultivation of the Dan stage, focusing on the 24 blizzard strikes. For the rest of the day, Yenjika was worried that Lu Qing would lose his mind during the intimate interaction, so she firmly refused to come to the hotel for a discussion. Instead, they used video chat. Therefore, Lu Qing could only concentrate on studying the videos of the recent matches of Zhang Zhutong, Han Jifei, and Lu Xuanjun. He thought about his fighting methods and stood up from time to practice. In the room full of obstacles, no matter how he moved forward or backward, punched or kicked, he didn't trip. Yenjika rested her chin on one hand, her beautiful eyes rippling. In the evening, Lu Qing closed the computer, took a shower, and changed his clothes. He looked down at the martial arts stadium not far away again and saw people coming and going. After fastening the last button, he turned around and walked to the door. This was the last night of the youth tournament. It was a familiar process. The only difference was that there were fewer and fewer seats for the contestants. At 7:30 p.m., after the opening song and dance and the leader's speech, the ceremony finally came to the drawing of lots. This was the last drawing of lots. The chairman of the Martial Artist Association of Xing Province, Yin Huoming, put his hand into the box, took out a small ball, and read the name on it. Number 1 seed, Zhang Zhutong. Cheers erupted from the stands, raising the atmosphere. Following that, they quietened down again, holding their breaths, waiting for the birth of the first battle. Outside the live broadcast room of Xing Province Satellite TV, a woman with half-rimmed glasses reported to the leader. The ratings broke. They broke the previous record. Lu Debong, your grandson is in danger. My boss says that guy is very strong. He's the strongest young man in our province. A strong voice came from the other end of the phone. Lu Debong guffawed. He's already in the top 4 of the entire province's young generation. Our family is very satisfied. So what if it's dangerous? We don't expect him to be the champion. There's only one champion, and it depends on luck and blessings. Phone calls came in one after another. Old Master and Old Madam replied to them one by one. They looked a little tired. After all, they were not as happy as when they were showing off. In Lu Cheng's high school classmate group chat. Damn it. Why did he get Zhang Zhutong? I was expecting Qing to get Lu Xuanjun and enter the finals. He could wear out the other guy with his stamina. Tao Xiaofei sent an emoji of, I'm so angry. As a bar goer, he had dabbled in smoking, drinking, and gambling. After entering the top 16, he bet 10,000 yuan that Lu Qing would win the championship. If he had known that he would get Zhang Zhutong, he would have used the money to check Gaofen's nightclub. Isn't it normal to get Zhang Zhutong or Han Jifei? It's even better if he doesn't get one of them. Du Liu replied with an emoji of a panda scratching its head. Ah, I know. I'm just venting. Tao Xiaofei said with an emoji of spreading his hands. Other classmates appeared one after another and suggested that Big Dog should send red packets to cheer for Lu Qing. Little son, what do you think of this match? Wei Renjia asked Sun Yixing, Wu Qinggui, and Chu Weikai while touching the bags under his eyes. Sun Yixing thought for a while and answered, anyway, Zhang Zhutong is recognized as the #1 martial artist in the province under the age of 26. Even Han Jifei admits this. He just thinks that he has a 60 to 40 chance of winning against Zhang Zhutong. He showed off his English. After all, he had taken cultural courses in the martial arts school. If Lu Qing can beat Zhang Zhutong, he will be recognized as the #1 fighter in the province, regardless of whether he can win the other one in the finals. He is very strong, but I think he is still a year or so away from that position. Sun Yixing expressed his opinion. To accommodate the broadcast, the semi-finals and the finals were arranged very tightly with only an hour and a half of rest. Physical strength, the strength of the semi-final opponent, and the intensity of the match would all affect the final match. The loser was not necessarily weak, and the winner was not necessarily strong. Our Sir Lu doesn't fight for the #1 position. He's the super one. Wu Ting interrupted, which made Chu Weikai and Wei Renjia laugh. Wu Ting finished muttering and looked at Zhang Chufan, Yao Ruiwei, and the others who were looking serious. She frowned and frowned. Sir Lu has met the devil in this match. Ha 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 ha, look, the hypocrite who made it to the top 4 by cheating is about to show his true colors. Yan Shaoling punched the bed while reading the comments on the forum. So angry. She wanted to argue with the haters, but she didn't have the confidence to do so. She could only look at the screen and ask for the support of the guest grandpa. Professor Yu Hong, can you give us an analysis of the probability of winning this match? Asked the host. Yu Hong smiled and answered, let's put it this way. Not counting his physical strength, and speed, but his ability to perform several consecutive bursts, his mastery of force, and his simplified physical invulnerability moves, Lu Qing is a real professional 7th pin fighter of the dance stage. He could even be considered a strong professional 7th pin fighter. But if we take the previous aspects into account, he still lacks the foundation and can barely be regarded as a weak professional 7th pin fighter. Besides, he has only been in the dance stage for a few days, and it's said that he has only mastered withdraw for less than 2 months. In terms of experience and skills, he is far behind Zhang Zhutong. And Zhang Zhutong has completed 7 consecutive bursts and mastered furnace force, but he doesn't have the simplified physical invulnerability moves. So, I think the odds are 7-3. Zhang Zhutong is 7 to Lu Cheng's 3. It's not impossible for him to win, and he has created miracles many times. Hearing the guest grandpa's analysis, Yan Shaoling put on a long face and prayed silently, Yuan Shi Tianzuan, Jade Emperor, Queen Mother, Buddha, and God, Amen. Let Lu Qing defeat his opponent. #1 seed. Zhang Zhutong. I know this one. He's really good. Gu Shuang clapped her hands excitedly. Feeling 4 pairs of eyes on her, she suddenly realized something. She smiled guiltily and said, Ku, your man is better. Yanjika pursed her lips and stared at Lu Qing, who was sitting in the guest seat. She glanced at her phone, stood up suddenly, and walked to the other side of the aisle. Ku, where are you going? Gu Shuang asked in surprise. Washroom, Yanjika answered simply. Why didn't you call me? Gu Shuang was used to going to the washroom with her girlfriends. You just went there with Sister Jingjing. Yanjika didn't turn her head. I almost forgot. Gu Shuang flipped her hair. The match was about to start, and the audience had finished their business. The new round had not started yet, so the washroom was deserted. In the past, there would be a long line in the women's washroom, but now it was quiet. This was exactly the environment Yanjika needed. She looked in the mirror, picked up her phone, and bit her lower lip with her white teeth. She plucked up her courage and said in a normal voice, Dear, do your best. She finally shouted out these words. Lu Qing didn't compete with his opponent in body movement or flaming wind steps. Instead, he pushed his feet inward, bulged his thigh muscles, and twisted his back. He lowered his shoulder and threw a blast punch that tore through the wind to block his opponent's attack. Zhang Zhutong's wrist suddenly flicked when they were about to collide. His fist moved away like a white cloud in the wind, circling to Lu Cheng's side. He opened his fingers and grabbed Lu Cheng's forearm. Wind and fire tribulation, wind blows clouds. So what if you have a simplified physical invulnerability move? I won't collide with you. I'll just grab your Achilles heel. Lu Cheng was prepared for this. He raised his shoulder and exploded the force. His arms softened and turned into a long whip. He avoided the grab and twisted it in the opposite direction. Then, he leaned forward and tightened his muscles, whipping at his opponent's wrist joint. Zhang Zhutong suddenly withdrew his qi and blood. He lowered his body and turned into a human body Big Dan. Then he lifted his left foot and stomped hard on the ground. Bam! He channeled all the explosive power of the Dan stage into the ring. As he stomped and flipped, the entire ring clearly shook a few times. Cracks started to spread rapidly from his feet to the surrounding green bricks. It was ferocious and thick, making one's scalp go numb just by looking at it. A stomp was like an earthquake. This was the power of a professional 7th pin Dan stage. Zhang Zhutong timed his stomp perfectly. It happened when Lu Cheng's center of gravity was leaning forward. Lu Cheng felt his feet undulate and he was about to fall. Not good. Lu Cheng adjusted his muscles and forced himself to regain his center of gravity. At this moment, Zhang Zhutong rebounded by stamping his feet and moved forward like a gust of wind. He completely bypassed Lu Cheng's defensive circle and arrived at Lu Cheng's side. His left arm, which had been in front of his chest, swung out like a big spear, aiming for Lu Cheng's throat. It was fast and fierce, like a prairie fire. Wind and fire tribulation, fire with wind to kill with one move. No one expected Zhang Zhutong to not seek a protracted fight to show the power of the furnace force. Instead, he took the initiative to create an opportunity from the beginning and launched a series of killer moves. In this series of attacks, his experience, skills, and timing as a professional 7th pin in the Dan stage were fully displayed. At such a close distance and facing such a fire, even a force concentration was too late, let alone a dodge. If Lu Cheng's mind was affected during the conversation and his momentum was suppressed, his judgment would be delayed for a split second and he would lose on the spot. Fortunately, his heart was as cold as ice and he made a decision in a split second. He lowered his body and shrunk his head, narrowly avoiding the attack aimed at his throat in a half-sitting position. However, how could Zhang Zhutong's killing move be so simple? As soon as his left arm missed its target, he bulged his abdomen muscles and pulled his fascia, spine, and shoulders. He leaned his body to one side and dragged his arm to change the direction of his attack. Then, he hammered downwards. This drag and punch fully demonstrated the smoothness and transparency of his force. Lu Cheng didn't have time to think. Relying on his experience and awareness, he suddenly leaned back and made the iron bridge that he was used to. Unlike the past, his right foot sunk into the bricks to maintain his balance. His left thigh tightened, and with a snap, he whipped his leg between his opponent's legs when the distance between them was extremely close. Zhang Zhutong didn't panic. He lowered his body halfway and grabbed Lu Cheng's thigh with his right hand. The joints and fascia of his left arm made a strange noise. With a short change, he exerted the second-fold force and continued to punch downwards towards Lu Cheng's chest. Lu Cheng's right foot dug deeper into the bricks. He barely managed to raise his hands to block the punch. Bam! When he blocked the punch, his opponent's right hand grabbed his thigh. But all of a sudden, Zhang Zhutong felt that there was no feeling of flesh and blood. His opponent's muscles wriggled and combined perfectly with force concentration, borrowing his strength and integrating it with his qi, blood, force, and spirit into a single point. Borrowing. Qiu Lin's Wisdom King guards the temple? Just as the thought flashed through his mind, Zhang Zhutong sensed a burst of strength in his opponent's dantian. The muscles and skin on his thigh bulged and bounced off his right claw. This young man has a lot of ideas. Seeing this, the guest commentator, Yu Hong, couldn't help but praise him. He imitated Qiu Lin's "Wisdom King Guards the Temple" technique. Most professional 8th pin Dan stage fighters couldn't reach the level of Wisdom King Guards, and most professional 7th pin Dan stage fighters couldn't either. Lu Qing did a carp flip and straightened his leg to regain his stance. He blocked his opponent's left arm and turned his body sideways with the explosive momentum of Dan's stage to hit him with his elbow. This was the result of his hard work in the past few days. Using Qiu Lin's "Wisdom King Guards the Temple" as a reference, he used the "Wisdom King Guards the Temple" technique as the core and combined the borrowing force of 24 blizzard strikes with force concentration to push this move to the level of Dan's stage. "Come on, I'll show you the real howling blizzard." The more they fought, the fiercer and faster the blizzard became. Chapter 273. The scene of Zhang Zhutong stamping his feet like an earthquake stunned Qi Yunfei, Chao Lele, and the other spectators who rarely came into contact with martial arts. It also made Yan Zhika nervous. She unconsciously covered her mouth and held her breath for Zhang Zhutong's series of killer moves and her boyfriend's dodging at the edge of danger. When Lu Qing finally found an opportunity to turn the tables with the 24 blizzard strikes imitating the Wisdom King Guards the Temple, she breathed a sigh of relief. She could hear the thumping sound in her chest. No wonder he's a famous 7th pin mighty one. This is going to be a tough battle. Come on, Cheng. Coupled with the explosive force of the Dan stage, Lu Cheng's elbow hit the air with a sharp sound. Zhang Zhutong's hair stood on end and his spirit exploded. At this moment, the distance between them was very close. Zhang Zhutong resisted the subconscious thought of retreating and calmly made an accurate judgment. He lowered his back and quickly condensed the human body Big Dan in his lower abdomen. His arms swelled as the power gushed out. He lifted them up and put them in front of him. In all kinds of martial arts classics, there was a saying that a fist strike was like a tiger's, while an elbow strike was like a dragon's. The former was made up of small bones, while the latter was a solid whole. The difference in strength was self-evident. Facing Lu Cheng's Dan stage elbow strike, Zhang Zhutong didn't dare to block it with one hand, nor did he dare to face it head-on. He raised his left hand and pushed his right hand to the side. With the combined force of his two palms, he managed to block the elbow strike and push it away from him to avoid the continuous attacks of the throwing body punch. It was strange. With Zhang Zhutong's physique and the fact that he was stronger than Lu Qing in the Dan stage, even if he had lost the initiative, they should have been evenly matched. However, Zhang Zhutong's body swayed and he took a step back, putting some distance between them. Once Lu Chang's 24 blizzard strikes started, it was continuous. Especially when he was still using force concentration, the strength of his whole body could be integrated into one. He didn't need to exert strength from his feet, but only the bulging muscles of his upper body could produce a strike with all the strength of his whole body. This made his 24 blizzard strikes, in this state could be like Zhou Jingquan's continuous fly-fall punch, continuous and whistling without pause. His left elbow had just been blocked. His muscles wriggled to borrow strength and combined it with his qi, blood, and spirit into a Big Dan. Boom! The Big Dan exploded and the volcano erupted. Lu Qing took advantage of the rebound and turned to the right. He lifted his waist and his right arm swelled half a circle, turning into a terrifying iron whip. He took advantage of the momentum and swung it at the enemy behind him, aiming for his neck. The whip parted the air and stirred up a gust of wind on both sides. It stimulated Zhang Zhutong's skin and made his pores close. Bone-chilling double explosion. Zhang Zhutong didn't dare to slack off. He did a second force concentration in a row. The muscles on his right hand stood out. The blood vessels and veins on the back of his hand were visible. Paw! He exerted strength with his shoulders, swung his elbows, and swung his forearms. Like a nunchaku, he struck Lu Cheng's single whip horizontally. Bang! The sound was deafening and the airflow was roaring. Lu Cheng's body swayed forward, but his qi and blood quickly flowed back, pulling part of Zhang Zhudong's force back to his dantian. He turned to the right again, diagonally facing the enemy. He bounced his waist and gave a fierce side kick. It was so fast that it was as if there was no gap between the moves. Brutal blizzard triple explosion. He had a clear understanding of the difference in strength between himself and the enemy. He knew that Zhang Zhutong wasn't Meng Jifeng. If he fell into a passive position again, he would lose the opportunity to counterattack and be defeated by continuous attacks. If he wanted to win, he had to do the same. He couldn't give Zhang Zhutong a chance to catch his breath. He had to crush his enemy with the momentum of the mega avalanche. Zhang Zhutong first took a step back, then sat down firmly with his dan. He stopped swaying and swelled his thighs. He didn't show any sign of weakness. He lashed out a gust of wind and met Lu Cheng's side kick. Triple explosion versus triple explosion. Bam! Yin Huaming, the referee, felt a strong wind blowing in his face. He saw the two legs frozen in midair. Shards of shoes and trouser legs were drifting outward. After Lu Cheng's continuous borrowing of strength, the two of them were finally evenly matched. Lu Cheng lowered his waist and sat on the golden wand throne. He withdrew his right leg in a strange way. He borrowed strength to steady himself. The sweat oozing out of his pores didn't drip down but stuck to his original position. His dan gushed out. Lu Cheng's back muscles bulged and pushed up his clothes. He took a step forward, his thick left arm hanging down. His fist slanted upward toward his opponent's abdomen. This process was unbelievably fast. It was like a continuous snowstorm, giving Zhang Zhutong no chance to dodge at all. Heavy snow collapse, quadruple explosion. Lu Cheng struck 4 times in a row with explosive power, each strike stronger than the one before. Lu Cheng's supporters felt their blood boil and their enthusiasm was boiling. They shouted, "Good," noisily. After withdrawing his leg, Zhang Zhutong took another step back, as if he was looking for something. But in the face of Lu Cheng's relentless attacks, he had no choice but to concentrate his dan again. He gritted his teeth and launched the same quadruple explosion and the same seabed collapse with his left fist. Boom! It was as if a bomb had been set off. Waves of wind spread in all directions. Even the debris from the broken bricks was blown away. This kind of fight and collision had exceeded the limits of the human body. After the collision, Lu Cheng borrowed strength again and condensed his human body Big Dan. He was going to launch the mighty snow collapse. At this moment, Zhang Zhutong, who had been at a disadvantage because of his continuous borrowing of force, bounced back and floated away with his body's momentum. From the first time Lu Cheng used 24 blizzard strikes, which was an imitation of the Wisdom King Guards the Temple technique, with his rich combat experience and understanding of the enemy's fighting style, he was keenly aware that if he didn't escape in time, he would be caught in the brutal blizzard and fall into an extremely passive situation. But at that distance, he could hit Lu Cheng with a raise of his hand. If he blindly dodged or retreated, he would only be digging his own grave and admitting defeat. Therefore, he made the right decision to take the hit head-on. He blocked 4 attacks in a row and retreated a small step after each one, quietly increasing the distance between them. By now, this distance was enough for him to accomplish a lot of things. Seeing that Zhang Zhutong was trying to dodge, Lu Cheng's Dan Qi exploded and pounced forward, instantly wiping out the space between them. While he was swinging his fist at Zhang Zhutong used the wind and fire steps. With the wind blowing and clouds moving technique, Zhang Zhutong bounced his back and tapped his toes on the ground. His body was as light as a catkin and strangely floated to the side. His timing was perfect. Not only did he avoid the punch, but he also completely got rid of the suppression of 24 blizzard strikes. Seeing this, Yenjika sighed, her voice full of regret. Her expectation had been accumulating bit by bit. She had almost seen the dawn of victory. However, this was a professional 7th pin in the Dan stage, the top seed of this competition. He lived up to his reputation. After missing the 5 consecutive blows, Lu Qing didn't continue blindly. It was good to not give Zhang Zhutong a chance to turn around with the brutal blizzard. But if he clung to Zhang Zhutong, he would be digging his own grave. In actual combat, he had to constantly adjust his strategy according to the situation. It's not that simple. As this thought flashed through his mind, Zhang Zhutong had already dodged to the side. His eyes were covered with a faint layer of red. He swung his right arm back and punched quickly. Lu Qing did not mix the Thunder Roar Zen into the 24 blizzard strikes in order to make the attacks more compact. But this time, he was able to free up his hands. He visualized a thundercloud in his mind, tightened the muscles of his arms and hammered back to block the attack. No matter what kind of attack his opponent made, he would counter with a Thunder Roar Zen. At his current level, his muscles and tendons were much tighter than before. Once his strength exploded, the impact produced could be said to be terrifying. Bam! Zhang Zhutong jumped and retracted his arm. Enduring the rolling qi and blood, he moved first. Lu Qing felt the tendons and veins in his forearm burning, which was quite uncomfortable. Furnace force. Zhang Zhutong circled to Lu Chang's side. With bloodshot eyes, he punched Lu Chang's spine. Lu Qing wasn't afraid. He leaned to one side and tightened his right arm muscles to block the punch like a whip. Come on. Let's see if you can take more Thunder Roar Zen or I can take more furnace force. Bang! 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 Zhang Zhutong resumed his usual fighting style. He kept circling Lu Qing and attacking him with one furnace force after another. Every time Lu Qing tried to use force concentration, Zhang Zhutong sensed it in time and took the initiative to retreat, dodging the attack with the momentum of wind-blowing clouds. Lu Qing had no choice but to fight back with Thunder Roar Zen and Frost Force. The burning heat and discomfort accumulated in his body were increasing. Yenjika was worried again because this was Zhang Zhutong's field of expertise. If this continued, he could completely detonate the furnace force in Lu Chang's body and win easily. She wondered if Chang's trick would work. Zhang Zhutong felt it was time for him to fight to his heart's content. He first neutralized the shock with the internal training method and then found another opportunity to launch the last furnace force to ignite the accumulated force in Lu Chang's body. At this moment, Lu Qing visualized the scene of the falling red sun crashing into the frozen river. Similarly, he wasn't going to use severe warning. He was going to imitate it and create a collision between the supernatural abilities of ice and fire to disperse the remaining force in his body. Boom! The cold current and the fire current collided and a storm swept out, passing through many meridians and rushing to Lu Chang's hand. During this process, bit by bit, the accumulated furnace energy was absorbed into the storm, becoming a part of it. Bam! Their fists collided. Zhang Zhutong was surprised to feel waves of coldness and heat, but he also felt the familiar feeling of a furnace. At the same time, his pupils shrank when he found that his opponent didn't show any signs of being detonated. Lu Qing can neutralize the effect of the furnace force. He can even use 24 blizzard strikes to launch force concentration and suppress me continuously, and his physical strength is limitless. How can I fight like this? While Zhang Zhutong was shaken, Lu Qing didn't feel good either. His meridians felt like they were being cut by knives and his spirit began to feel tired. But he pretended to be fine. His willpower surged and he stretched his body, shouting, come on. Come on if you can. His imposing manner and voice shook Zhang Zhudong's mind. Affected, Zhang Zhudong's reaction was a beat slower. Lu Qing condensed his Dan again, raised his right hand, and swung down his arm like the thunder god. There was no time to dodge, so he used force concentration again and swelled his arm to block. Bam! Zhang Zhudong's body shook as if he had been hit by a bomb. Lu Qing took advantage of the momentum and sat steadily on the golden wand throne, launching a double explosion. He stepped forward, his left hand like an iron hammer, and struck fiercely. Zhang Zhutong had no choice but to launch another double explosion. He threw a punch forward to meet the attack head-on. Triple explosion, quadruple explosion. Lu Qing gritted his teeth and endured the mental exhaustion, the throbbing pain in his head, and the discomfort in his body. He attacked crazily with the momentum of brutal blizzard. Zhang Zhudong's momentum was suppressed, but his combat experience was still there. He launched a quadruple explosion to hold on. At this point, both of them were exhausted. But Zhang Zhutong didn't know that Lu Qing was in the same situation. In his eyes, Lu Qing's hair and beard were all standing up. He looked majestic and didn't see the slightest sign of fatigue. He was shaken. He took the opportunity to retreat, but Lu Qing caught up with him in big strides. Sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right, they kept fighting around the edge of the arena. The fight was so intense that Yan Zhike and the others forgot to breathe. 2 minutes later, Zhang Zhutong felt exhausted and slowed down his steps. Lu Qing finally caught up with him. Lu Qing was mentally exhausted, but his physical strength was good. After all, he was replenished by the Jin Dan. He glared at Zhang Zhutong and released his momentum. Zhang Zhutong was stunned for a moment, as if he was facing an invincible enemy. While he was stunned, Lu Qing kicked up the pebbles and threw them at Zhang Zhudong's face. He gritted his teeth and wriggled his muscles, fascia, and organs to visualize the scene of the red sun breaking the ice. Zhang Zhutong subconsciously reached out his hand to block the stone that was flying at him. Then, he was hit by a punch that followed closely behind. He had to block. He had to block. Severe warning. Bam! After a short noise, Zhang Zhutong felt like he was back in the cryotherapy room last night. His mind was frozen bit by bit. Lu Qing's mind was in chaos, but he instinctively leaned to the side and bumped his stiff opponent out of the arena. Zhang Zhutong fell outside the arena. Yin Huaming's expression changed slightly. He raised his right hand and shouted, "Lu Qing wins." Zhang Zhutong, the number 1 seed of the youth tournament, lost. Lu Qing was on the verge of collapse, but there was still some qi in his body. When he heard the referee's announcement, all his emotions and pressure broke out. He straightened his body and roared to the sky. "I won." At the end of the roar, he bent down and put his hands on his knees, gasping for breath. The audience saw his fatigue and knew that even Superman had his limits. This was a hard-fought victory. Chapter 274. When they saw Zhang Zhutong get knocked off the arena by Lu Qing and heard the referee announce the result, the whole audience went silent. No one cheered or shouted. It was not that they didn't want to, but the tension of the previous battle had made them tense and tormented. It was as if they had also experienced such a fierce and difficult battle. When the result was out, no matter who they supported, the first thing they felt was relief. Then, they felt a wave of exhaustion wash over them, both physically and mentally. Until Lu Qing stood up straight, raised his hands, and roared to the sky, their passion was suddenly ignited. Their cheers suddenly boiled over. Lu Qing! Lu Qing! He won! He won! He won! All kinds of cheers echoed in the martial arts arena, converging into a wave that could almost blow off the roof. However, they soon quieted down again because Lu Qing, who was in the ring, had his hands on his knees and was panting heavily. On the big screen, his sweat dripped down and hit the surface of the broken bricks, splashing into countless tiny dots. His eyes lost their depth and spirit, like a blind man who could only see darkness. He can get tired. He can get tired. Even the most abnormal physical strength has a limit. Thoughts flashed through the hearts of the audience. Suddenly, they felt that this young martial artist who had won a bitter battle was not Superman. He was still a living, normal person like everyone else. He was no longer so distant. He was so close that they felt like they could reach out and touch him. And in the battle just now, he had really given it his all and squeezed out all his marrow in order to achieve victory. Unknowingly, the audience's good impression of him increased. Yen Jike covered her mouth. She was exhausted, but she was overwhelmed with emotions. Looking at Lu Qing, who had finally reached his limit in the arena, recalling his roar of "come on," and his overwhelming momentum that completely suppressed Zhang Zhutong, she felt sorry for him, pity for him, pride, excitement, and joy. She wanted to give her boyfriend a big hug regardless of anything else. Lying on the ground beside the arena, Zhang Zhutong gradually regained his consciousness. He saw the transparent glass ceiling and the rising moon through the light pollution. It was so peaceful that he felt he was not in the martial arts stadium, but in the white mist of the cryotherapy system. Zhang Zhutong felt that he was not in the martial arts stadium at all. Lost? After waiting for 3 years and training bitterly for 3 years, he lost just like that. Although victory and defeat were common in a battle, 3 years later, I would be 26 years old. Unless the rules were changed, it would be impossible for me to enter the ring of the youth tournament and win the championship. Even if the age limit was relaxed, how strong could Lu Qing be in 3 years' time? Yu Hong smiled and sighed. Lu Qing is really good at creating miracles. In 1 or 2 months, if Lu Qing and Zhang Zhutong fought 10 more times, maybe he could only win 1 or 2. But he did it at the most critical moment and on the most critical occasion. 1 win was worth 10 wins. No one could or dared to say that he was weaker than Zhang Zhutong. After hearing the guest grandpa's comments and seeing that Lu Qing had regained his mobility, Yan Shaoling let go of her worries. Her suppressed emotions for the past 2 days finally broke out. She posted several posts in the forum. "Come on, come on. You bunch of haters, who are you accusing of using underhanded means to enter the top 4? Who would kneel before Zhang Zhutong or Han Jifei? Come on, come on. Let's hurt each other. Our Lu Qing not only wants to enter the top 4, but also the finals. He wants to step on the top seed. It's not him who made it to the top 4 by using tricks. It's the others who want to avoid him. Come on, come on. F***ck your tricks. F***ck your hypocrites. F***ck your haters." After posting, Yan Shaoling couldn't help but pant. She felt tired and refreshed at the same time. Seeing this, the whole forum was silent. The haters didn't dare to show up, and the others seemed to have forgotten to reply. After a while, Brahman said weakly, "You scared me to death. I wanted to come out and scold those trolls, but when I saw your post, I was scared back. Son, I didn't expect you to be such a person. I didn't expect you to be a swearing little Changye." Unparalleled Dragon King also replied weakly. Yan Shaoling glanced at the post, covered her face and replied, Too excited. I'll delete it. I don't want to leave a black history." "No need. Don't you have a black history? I've already taken a screenshot. I'll keep it and pass it on to my children and grandchildren." Okamoto's fan laughed. "Yeah, don't delete it. I suddenly feel that Yan Shaoling is cuter when she swears. Unparalleled Dragon King said with a hilarious joke. Black will eventually be white. Son, I have faith in you. Brahmin encouraged her by patting her shoulder. Bull Demon King, a lip-reading expert, also appeared. Moderator, I want to give you a nickname. What nickname? I don't want it if it's not nice. Yan Shaoling gave up and almost cried. I used to be such a cute child. Once I entered the forum, I became a passerby with no moral integrity. Bull Demon King snickered. In ancient times, the great sages with great achievements were respectfully called Z. Since you've lost your moral integrity, I've decided to call you Chao Z. Lu Qing recovered from his blurred thoughts and breathing difficulties. He bowed to the stands where Yan Zhike and his parents were. Enduring the throbbing pain in his head and the tiredness in his mind, he slowly walked to the side of the field and took back his phone from the match supervisor. Amidst the deafening cheers and applause, he stepped into the exclusive resting room step by step. He didn't go to sleep immediately to recover his energy, because in this state, he couldn't conceal his spirit and qi and meditate. In other words, he couldn't enter a deep sleep. If that was the case, an hour and a half of rest wouldn't be enough to recover his fatigue. Instead, he would feel even more tired. Therefore, he had to rest for a while and let his tiredness dissipate naturally. Then he would use meditation to sleep. Sitting on the sofa, although his muscles had been recovered by the Jin Dan, he didn't want to move a finger, let alone take a hot bath. Of course, on the other hand, he had a strong will. He picked up his phone with difficulty, logged into QQ, and sent a message to Yan Zhike. I'm so tired. Yan Zhike had been holding her phone and didn't dare to send a message for fear of affecting Lu Cheng's recovery. Seeing the message, she was startled and sent a knock on the head emoji. Why aren't you sleeping? Hurry up and go to sleep. There was only an hour and a half left until the end of the second semi-final. Lu Cheng described his current situation of not being able to enter a deep sleep and said with a smirk, It's a pity that I have to prepare for the second semi-final. Otherwise, I could go back to the hotel and share the joy of victory with you and enjoy your head massage. Do you have a headache now? Yan Zhike asked with concern. Yes. My head is throbbing and my temples are swollen. Lu Qing didn't hide his condition. Although it was said that men had to appear strong and not be defeated, at the appropriate time, in front of the girl they loved, revealing their true self could instead evoke the radiance of motherhood and make her feel that she was needed. She would feel that there was no pretense between the two of them and that she was the most special one. Yan Zhike looked around and found that all the cameras were pointing at the ring, at Han Jifei and Lu Xuanjun, who were walking towards the ring respectively. So, she replied without any expression, how about I massage your temples? So that you can recover quickly and go to sleep. She knew that there was a physiotherapist on standby in the exclusive lounge, but she just couldn't control the impulse in her heart. Okay. I'll pick you up at the door. Lu Qing didn't think about the physiotherapist at all. He sat up from the sofa with the willpower of a dying man. Okay. Yan Zhike put away her phone and stood up. She walked along the aisle to the bathroom and planned to go around. Where are you going? Gu Shuang was still immersed in the mood of, damn, 'cause man defeated Zhang Zhutong. But she was awakened by her best friend's unusual movement. Yan Zhike's eyes were shining like stars. She blushed and said, lounge. Lounge? Let's go together. What lounge? Gu Shuang recalled and blinked her eyes. Xing Jingjing pulled her and whispered, don't ask. Oh. Gu Shuang dragged her voice and understood what lounge it was. She smiled ambiguously. Aren't you afraid of affecting his recovery? That's right. He's so tired. How can he recover in 1.5 hours? Maybe the encouragement of love is more effective. Yenjika spat and didn't dare to answer. She walked quickly to the edge of the aisle. She carefully avoided the possible camera positions. When the whole audience was focused on the ring, she flashed into the lounge with the door half open. She saw Lu Qing waiting there and saw the tiredness that made her heart ache. I don't know why, but when I see you, I suddenly don't feel tired anymore. Lu Cheng's heart was filled with warmth and joy. He smiled and said, Bullsh *T. Yenjika glanced at him. Go back to your room and rest. Lu Qing held her hand and ignored the eyes of passers-by like Fong Siki. They went straight back to their exclusive lounge. As soon as they entered and closed the door, he hugged the girl tightly and kissed her fragrance. Then, the two of them kissed with gentle passion and kissed deeply. After a few minutes, Yenjika pushed Lu Qing away and gave him a charming look. You're so tired, but you still want to do bad things. You didn't even take a shower. You stink. After a few words, she asked with concern, Are you feeling better? With the nourishment of love, of course I'm feeling better. I should be able to conceal spirit and qi. Lu Qing snickered. I'll take a shower first. No need. Lie down. Anyway, we have to compete later and sweat. Yenjika pulled him to the spacious sofa and let him lie down. She sat beside him and rubbed his temples. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. I'm afraid that my sweat will stink you. Lu Qing put his phone aside and answered with a smile. Humph. It's good that you know. I'll sacrifice myself. Yenjika specially learned some physiotherapy massage skills this time. She used her hands to relieve the swelling pain in Lu Cheng's head. The smell of her boyfriend's sweat drifted into her nose. She didn't feel disgusted at all. She even liked it a little. She felt that it was very manly. While massaging, she listened to Lu Cheng's physical condition and found that he fell into a deep sleep within a minute. Yenjika freed one hand and took her boyfriend's phone. She unlocked it with her fingerprint and changed the mode to silent. Then she took out her own phone and did the same thing. I can't let Qing wake up. The girl smiled lightly and was proud of her carefulness and cautiousness. She didn't stop massaging. While massaging, she saw that her own phone was flashing with the name on the screen. Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager. Yenjika was shocked. She chose to answer the call and whispered in her ear, Mom. Ji Mingyu chuckled. Is it very quiet? In Lu Cheng's lounge. How did you know? Yenjika was stunned. But wouldn't it mean that he and Han Jifei were working together to defeat Lu Qing? Zhang Zhudong's pride stopped him from speaking. After an hour and 20 minutes, Yenjika played the role of an alarm clock and woke Lu Qing up. How do you feel? She blinked and asked with concern. Lu Qing shook his neck and answered with a smile, I've recovered half of my spirit. My physical strength is fine, but my tendons and muscles are a little swollen and uncomfortable because of the furnace force. The furnace force was different from the cold force. It was more corrosive and gradually accumulated. Even if it was dispelled, it still hurt Lu Qing to some extent. Well, go and change your clothes. Yenjika didn't say much. Lu Qing changed into a new martial arts suit and shoes, washed his face with cold water, and showed that he was in high spirits again. He smiled and said, Will you go out later? Or just watch from here? Just watch from here. Yenjika smiled and her eyes rippled. Wait for you to come back. Okay. Lu Qing chuckled. Don't you want to cheer for my dear? Rogue. Yenjika spat and blushed. Then she hummed, turn around, turn around. Okay. Lu Qing turned to the door with his back to her. Yenjike took a step forward, put her arms around his waist, and buried her face in his neck. She whispered in a low voice, "Dear, dear, cheer for me. No matter what the result is, I'm proud of you." In the stadium outside, the broadcast began to introduce the matches of the final. As usual, the winner went out first. The final of the 3rd Young Warrior Championship of Xing Province begins. Let's welcome the first contestant, number 18 Lu Qing. He defeated the number 9, number 5, number 6, and number 1 seeds and finally stood in the ring of the final. The audience was more emotional. They kept silent as if they were thinking about something. Lu Qing walked out of the lounge and walked along the path under the spotlight to the stone stairs. At this moment, he suddenly heard a shout. "Champion!" The audience in the stadium was excited. One voice after another echoed around. "Champion! Champion! Champion!" Chapter 275. Champion! 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 Their voices were messy at first, then orderly, converging into a torrent, roaring and rolling in every corner of the stadium. After witnessing Lu Qing's hard battle to become the top seed and recalling his journey of defeating strong opponents, most of the audience suddenly felt that he was the champion of this youth tournament. No matter what the final result would be, he was the real champion, the champion in everyone's heart. Under such a schedule, the final depended on luck and drawing lots, while the previous challenges reflected the glory of martial arts. Champion! 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 Hearing such shouts and feeling such recognition, Lu Qing, who was originally in a relaxed and happy mood, suddenly had mixed feelings and his blood was boiling. What more could he ask for in this youth tournament? He slowed down his pace, raised his hands, and saluted to the audience one by one. At this moment, I am the king of this competition in this stadium. The audience was quiet for a moment, then burst into more enthusiastic shouts, Lu Qing! Champion! Their shouts were like questions and answers, making Yenjika, who was in the lounge, feel immersed in the scene, her eyes shining brightly. At this time, the camera shot around the stands, recorded several beauties, and returned to Lu Qing. The girl remembered something, took out her phone, and sent a message to her boyfriend. Surrounded by the sound waves and illuminated by the radiance, Lu Qing indulged his hot blood and looked at the arena that symbolized the champion. At this point, it would be too self-deceiving to say that he didn't desire the highest glory. Even if he was weaker than Han Jifei, even if he had a hard fight with Zhang Zhutong, even if he had consumed more energy than he did against Lu Xuanjun, he still had a chance. I didn't come here to admit defeat. To be honest, this final was very important for Han Jifei, who was in the top 4 last year and was now 25 years old. Once he missed it, there would be no more chances. And as the second seed, he also carried too much hope of winning the championship, so naturally he had to bear a lot of pressure. But now he really had no pressure at all. His goal had been achieved. His ranking was better than expected, and his prize money was also more than expected. Moreover, he had won the audience's recognition and become the uncrowned king of this competition. Whether he won or lost the final, he didn't need to consider anything else but the desire to win in his heart. Victory or defeat was up to him, there was no pressure in his heart. While facing Zhang Zhu, Lu Qing, whose goal was to get into the top 4, was also close to this feeling. However, he still had the burden of proving that he didn't need to use any tricks. In fact, for him, this was not a big deal. Even if he lost, he could just stop browsing Weibo or forums and not talk about it with his friends. He could just quietly read novels, play games, and watch TV series and programs for a week. When the heat died down, he could pick himself up again and clear his name with victory after victory. However, he knew that Yenjika would feel guilty and hurt because of this. For the sake of his beloved girl, he calmly shouldered the pressure. Now, all his burdens had been removed. He was purely focused on the competition and martial arts. As his footsteps became more relaxed, bits and pieces of information about Han Jifei flashed through his mind. Male, 25 years old. 3 years ago, he was a senior professional 8th pin. 2 years ago, he got the certificate of professional 7th pin. He was one of the vice leaders of Jianxian Hall. He was born on the streets and had mingled in the underworld. He was lucky enough to follow a good boss and learn a lot of skills. After getting a professional certificate, he gradually cleaned up and joined the Virtuous Hall, where he mastered the virtual seal fist. It was said that he was able to successfully wash his hands of the underworld and leave his original gang because the boss behind the Virtuous Hall was one of the big shots in the underworld of Xing province. He was quite mysterious and only had a nickname, Master Ba. The feature of Virtual Punch was that once mastered, there was no need for force concentration. Once it was activated, it could make the body empty as if it didn't exist. The force of this skill was also quite extraordinary. It was known as hard and soft at will. It could hurt people without hitting, and hit a mountain through a cow. Yes, hit a mountain through a cow. Before the cow was startled, the mountain had already collapsed. Han Jifei still had a long way to go before reaching the highest level of Virtual Punch, but he could be counted as a small success. He was good at changing the force between hard and soft, and good at attacking the opponent's tendons and bones in a head-on fight. He was the nemesis of many thwart training kung fu. Although his physical strength had broken through the human body's limit, he was not as good as Zhang Zhutong. The best he could do was to complete 6 consecutive bursts. The more Lu Qing thought about it, the more he felt that Han Jifei was not easy to deal with. He was not much weaker than Zhang Zhutong. It was like the difference between 190. For Lu Qing, it was more likely that he would lose than win, not to mention that he had just fought a tough battle with the number 1 seed. His tendons and muscles were swollen and painful, which affected his strength. Han Jifei's opponent, Lu Xuanjin, was relatively weak. But it was not impossible. Last night, Han Jifei's opponent was the number 3 seed, Qiu Shan. He fought very hard, he won with great difficulty, he might even have injuries on his body. Even if he wasn't, even if Jianxian Hall had a good method to eliminate fatigue and restore physical strength, after such a high-intensity battle, it was impossible for him to restore his physical strength to its peak in just 1.5 hours. He might not even have the original 8 cooldowns. What a pity. Lu Qing took the time to sleep deeply and didn't pay attention to Han Jifei's performance against Lu Xuanjin. He didn't pay attention to whether there were any hidden injuries or hidden dangers. While thinking, Lu Qing came to the edge of the ring. He took out his phone and was about to hand it to the match supervisor. At this moment, he habitually turned on the screen and saw a message from his girlfriend. Han Jifei has a small injury on his left rib. When he punches with his left hand, his strength will be slow. I didn't forget to watch the match just now. I even remembered to turn off the sound. Quick, praise me. Lu Cheng's mind flashed back to last night when Han Jifei used force concentration and void punch to block Qiu Shan's sky-piercing finger. At that time, he didn't seem to have any abnormalities. Who would have thought that he would be injured where he was hit? The corners of his mouth curled up as he replied under everyone's watchful eyes. Praise Coach Yen. You are so witty, cautious, beautiful and wise. Hey, look at my Lu Cheng's doting smile. He really has a girlfriend. Eternal nightfall, Yen Shaoling keenly sensed it. Brahmin jumped out and poked her weak spot. Unfortunately, you don't have boobs to beat, don't say that. A is also a boob. Okamoto's fan said. Yen Shaoling was furious. Nonsense. Compared to my height and body shape, I have a lot of boobs. Yeah, the height and body shape of a primary school student. Lingling is 1.5 meters. Unparalleled Dragon King also joined in. Hey, I'm so pissed off. I'm 1.52 meters tall. How can you erase these 2 centimeters? You don't know how important they are. Yan Shaoling didn't know whether she was defending herself or making fun of herself. For them, seeing Lu Qing enter the finals, their wish had been fulfilled. They were quite relaxed and leisurely. Winning or losing was not a big deal. In the lounge, Yan Zhike tapped on the keyboard and replied with an emoji of pompous orange. Then she saw Lu Qing hand his phone to the competition supervisor and walk up the stone steps to the arena step by step. He stood under the spotlight. At this time, the broadcast began to introduce the other side of the finals. Let's welcome the second player, the second seed, Han Zhifei. He has defeated many strong opponents along the way, including the 3rd seed and the 9th seed. Now he will face the biggest dark horse of this competition. Before the broadcast ended, the surrounding stands burst into cheers, shouting the name Han Zhifei. As a native of Gaofen and participating in the preliminaries with Jianxian Hall to reach a higher level, Han Zhifei was well known and naturally had a lot of support in this half of the home ground. He walked along the road, climbed the stone steps, and stood opposite to Lu Qing. The two didn't speak. They saw the referee raise his right hand, and the broadcast shouted, "The final of the 3rd Young Warrior Championship competition of Xing Province officially begins." The last 4 words were hoarse and ignited the enthusiasm of the audience. The sound of the trumpets was louder and louder. The referee waved his hand and announced, "Talk time starts now." There was a shallow scar on Han Zhifei's face, but his eyes were not fierce. He smiled slightly coldly. "I should be one of the first people to notice you in this competition. Did it start with Xiongyu?" Lu Qing had checked the information of each opponent, so he naturally knew that Han Zhifei and Xiongyu were both members of Jianxian Hall. "Yes, at that time I looked at your information and the competition schedule, and I cursed in my heart. The semi-finals and the final on the same night. Who arranged this? Didn't you, a guy with abnormal physical strength, take advantage of it?" Han Zhifei laughed and shook his head. "Who knew? In the end, it seemed that I was the one who took advantage of it. This is really unexpected." Without waiting for Lu Qing to answer, he continued, "This makes me a little embarrassed. It seems that the championship should belong to you." Speaking of this, his face became serious. "But I won't go easy on you, and I won't feel pressured because of this matter. This is not only because I also want to be the champion and to win, but also because the greatest respect for you is to go all out." "What a coincidence, I also think so. I won't easily admit defeat, and I won't back down. Going all out to defeat you is the greatest respect for you." Lu Qing also answered solemnly. After that, the two looked at each other and smiled. Everything was understood without words. In the remaining time, they adjusted their states, and Lu Qing quickly determined the battle strategy, which was to bet on the opponent not to know that his physical strength was not exhausted at all, and his energy was almost half recovered. Of course, energy couldn't be quantified. It could only be said that his mind was clear and his reaction was not slow. In addition, because the dance stage was based on martial arts willpower, it emphasized the spirit and the soul, so the confrontation of momentum was particularly important. Thinking quickly, the referee looked at the clock and waved his right hand fiercely again. "Begin." The final really began. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.